welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing a journal with me if I get to it. Just depends on how long I talk about the other stuff. Now, I took a whole heap of request videos, request suggestions on Facebook for videos you'd like to see. And one that was super interesting was how to create journal spreads without drawing, because they didn't feel confident in their drawing style and in like their art style and all that sort of thing. And it was interesting because I tend to always draw in my journal spreads, because drawing is something that I love to do and it's something that I like to see within my journal spreads. So thinking about it from a perspective of not drawing at all but still creating journal spreads was interesting. And once upon a time I didn't actually do any drawing in my journal spreads. I used my photography, photographs. I used bits and pieces out of magazines, wrapping paper, all that sort of thing in my older journals. And I will talk about that at a later date, like comparing my old journals back in the day to my new journals, but I'm pretty sure I've done a very similar video on that. So if I go back and find it and it's too similar, then I won't film that sort of thing. But I'm going to talk to you about what sort of things that I like to use in my journals when drawing is not an option, when I don't feel like drawing, or let's just say I can't draw. I can't draw, but I do like the idea of having visual elements in my journal spreads. And my one biggest thing to do is to use my own photographs in my journals. And if I wasn't able to draw, I would use, photographs would be the next best thing. It is something that I've physically taken a photo of. It's something that obviously meant something to me, and that's why I captured it. So it would be my own way of incorporating visual elements that are still very personal. So photographs are definitely something that I would go to next if drawing was not on the table. And I've always urged you guys to take photos and get them printed and use them. And in the journal with me, I'm actually going to be doing just that. I went out with hubby to Newtown for a date day and took a whole heap of photos of the really cool buildings that are in Newtown that I really adored. And I was looking at them like this and thinking about that whole idea of not drawing and things. So I thought that I would build a streetscape almost. It won't be a proper street because I've taken these building shots from all different angles, but it would be a quirky way to have sort of like almost like a street across the bottom of my page and cutting out the sky and stuff. That's the idea that's floating around in my head. And then when I looked at the list of things, I thought I'd talk about sort of using different ways to incorporate images into your journal spreads. And photography is the number one thing that I will always tell you. If you can't draw, photograph things, because that's the next best thing besides your writing. Obviously writing is always the most important thing, but if you want to put things in your journal and you're not happy with how you draw, or you don't, could be a day where you don't feel like drawing, photographs. I cannot stress that enough to you. I've printed off a few pages worth of photographs. My hubby in my new beret that I haven't even gotten to wear, but he was so adorable that I had to snap a picture. And this one was when he was super sick and being all woe cake. Super sick. So poor hubby's been a bit sick. So, but I thought I would do a print and then print off some of the Newtown photos. And then when I do the journal with me, I will walk through my journal with me, not drawing in it. So this will be how I incorporate some things. And then there was another question about journal fodder and collage fodder and how do I go about picking my things to use, collage elements to use and stuff. Now I've got a random stash of bits and bobs on my table, and I thought I'd just talk about a few of them. I have them on hand. I obviously have my collage sheets, which I also love using. Here's a few of the originals that I just pulled out of a box. I thought that they might want to end up in my journal. The original originals from some of the collage sheets that you've seen, the video I did for Jane, a Whimsy Warrior that never made it, or Army of Odd I should say, and then just the Glad wrap from this one of the very first videos I did here on Patreon. So then I've got magazine stuff, and that was the main point we were talking about, was how do I go about picking things and collage elements for my journals. Now some of the things that I've got, obviously Flow magazine. Everybody knows about it. Everyone and their mum knows about Flow magazine. It is fantastic for journal fodder, fantastic for patterns and color and all that sort of thing. And these were pulled out, but I actually want to put this in a frame and put it in my house. And that's purely because I love that whole, I like my characters to be very rounded and very fluid and almost like they don't have bones, because I get caught up in bone structure and posture and all that sort of thing. So I decided to skip that when it came to my illustration style because it was just frustrating me. So I like this whole idea of round characters, and I obviously love animals and creatures alike, so this really spoke to me, and it's something that will go in a frame, not so much my journal, but if I was working my sewing book journal, I would probably end up putting this into that anyway. And stuff like this, like patterns and flowers and florals, I may not like pick this whole image. I might pick just like that square out of it and use that as a layering piece. I could, you know, layer a photograph over the top of it, work some of my poetry over the top of it. But you know what you like. And this is what chasing obsessions, and florals and line work and all that sort of thing is my lifeblood. So I like to pick things that really talk to my style and what I like and how I like things to look. So if I find something familiar in a piece of collage or a magazine or something, I will pull it out and put it aside. And I'm pretty sure it was because of these florals, and I love the texture in her dress. It almost looks like fur. So that's why I picked that. And I probably would use some of this background as a base for something else, as a base for like my collage clusters and stuff like that. And I pulled this out because when I build the totems and when I build pattern corners and things, I love picking sections of photographs that have really striking patterns. And I loved the whole look of this image. And granted, I probably won't ever use the whole image, but it was super, super inspiring. It had all this cool texture in here that you could cut out and turn into a creature body or rocks and stuff and mountains and patterns and textures and all that sort of thing if you want to collect that sort of thing. They're the sorts of things that I think of when I pull things out. I like to make things from other things, but at the same time I want it to look like my work and not look like I've grabbed work from everywhere else around the world and put it together and made something. So if I can pull like a section out from here and grab that section and create something completely different that's very much my own style, that's what I like to do. And of course, when I'm creating things, I'm always thinking about copyright and stuff like that. So I've got to be very careful if I create something and it can be just derived back to the original artist, it can't become a collage element. So I have to think about things that I really, really enjoy. I love this graininess in the background, and that would become something. I'm always thinking about things that I can layer my photographs over. I can layer my Nook dwellers over. You're always going to look for patterns and textures and things that you can then incorporate and transform into something that's uniquely your own and won't look like a photograph from I think this is the Womankind magazine. So yeah, I always look for things that I can transform into something else. And I always pick things that are very unique to my style. Black and white, graphic, patterns, all that sort of thing, very unique to my style. Floral line work is heavily influenced in my style. So I'm picking things that are already in my style and using things around me to help incorporate it. And I try and do very similar subject matter because that's what makes me happy and that's what I like my stuff to look at. This one, I'm pretty sure it was this one that I picked. Yep, this one was picked because I loved the really deep dark colors. I love that photo. You could honestly cut her head out and collage features over her, very Tisha Moore-esque. All this sort of pattern and texture work down here could be then turned into something else. And I loved all the tree shadows in the background of the window, so I could definitely use that. And I'm also thinking about my homework for my By Bun Spirits class, thinking about her wallpaper sheets and all that sort of thing. So these are the types of things that I look for when I'm picking my own journal fodder. And a lot of it I try and pick in the same color theme. This was all the pattern work in here that could literally be cut out and turned into something else. These little beaded things, you could turn these into tentacles or things like that. We've always got to let your mind expand when looking at collage things for your journals. You've got to think outside your box. You've got to think, how can I turn this into something that's mine and doesn't look like I've just taken a whole piece of collage from a magazine? And that's what I look at when I look for things like this. Like this thing here could be turned into a nest, and you can have a creature coming out of that sort of thing. And these can be turned into sections in a forest, or it could be a body for a creature. I could then come and illustrate an eye or faces and things out of these, and that's what's, you know, turning around in my head. These looked like nests that could be turned, well, this is a nest, but these baskets and things could definitely be turned into something more whimsical and more my kind of step into the world. And that's how I look at everything. How can I make this something that will look like it came from my world, instead of a photograph from Country Living, I'm pretty sure this is. So that's where I am when thinking about collage fodder. And sometimes I just really like beautiful pictures, and that may be, I like the idea of collections are grouped by type and color, and this may never make it into a journal spread, it may never go any further, but it was inspiring at the time, and that's why I pulled it out. And I like the idea of collections and collecting things, because we're all bowerbirds, especially with art supplies. This again was all these beautiful hand-painted plates with sea anemones and seaweed patterns all over them. I probably just liked it as it was, and I'm pretty sure I had picked this out for my inspiration book at the time. So there was that. These sorts of things, leaves, twigs, patterns, textures that can then be morphed into something completely different and can be a base for something. And then thinking about environments and creatures that could live in these grasses and things like that. That's where my head's at. Picking something like this with really bright patterns, I could then scallop, cut this and start building borders for your collage sheets. I could do a whole heap of things. The totem poles could be made from these, and I'm pretty sure some of these were patterns in your mermaid tails. When I made the mermaid tail, I was looking for really bright colors and textures and things like that. That one. Obviously reusing photographs of your own. You can always be re-inspired by your own stuff. You can always reuse your own stuff. There is nothing against it. I am very much into that sort of thing, because then it's always going to be uniquely yours because you're using your own stuff. You can see that I was pulling out little bits and pieces from here for mermaid tail patterns when I was doing a mermaid's tail. Now these girls, I absolutely adored these women, and I loved the whole look of them, and they were just inspiring to me. I obviously could never use them. I could if I was just doing a mixed media piece for my own personal use, but a lot of the time when I create things, I'm creating them with the idea of collage sheets in mind, because I'm always having to build collage sheets. So using this sort of thing in a collage sheet can't be done, because it's, you know, copyright and stuff like that. So if I was to use these in my journal, they would just be for my personal journaling, and they very well may make it into my journaling. I love the whole drippy hair thing. That is something that I would go, well, I'd love to do that with a nook dweller or something like that. So like visual ideas. I also like view from my window. I'm pretty sure that was another thing that I really liked. So I would maybe cut that text out and use that as a way to do a jumping off point for a journal entry or illustration or photographs. So those sorts of things. Text also evokes such a huge thing in me. And then we get to things like this, which are just really beautiful images and would look great sort of folded over and used as a giant tip-in, and then me layering photographs over the top of them and text and things, and then you have a completely different take on a huge macro shot. And that's kind of the things that I like to do. Or it could become a pocket for a journal page because it's sort of nondescript but still quite beautiful to look at. So those are the types of things that I like to put patterns and things. It'd be really cool for a junk journal. I think that's probably what it was destined for when I was thinking about making junk journals. Bright colored paper that I can use as backgrounds and things, or just to wrap a gift, basically. You actually saw, this is the other half of the piece of paper. So this is what I'm talking about. Where's my journal? Underneath all the crap. So this piece of paper here was actually used in one of my very favorite journal spreads right here as a back, like I was just talking about, as a backing piece for a journal tip-in. Both that side and that side were background bits for tip-ins. And I didn't have to do anything amazing. I didn't have to work hard for it. But I absolutely love the way it looks. And so I always look for things that have quirky, blurry patterns that I can then work my words over, layer over photographs, and there you have a tip-in. And that's exactly what this will get turned into, another tip-in for my journal, because I still really love this pattern. It was a full page picture of a tree with some engraving into it, but I see it as something much, much different and will give an extra layer to my journal that I really adore. And I've got some little cards that I have, like affirmation cards that I created that I will tip into my journal. Again, patterns and textures for like the totem poles and things like that. I'm always looking for brightly colored things that I could use as popping, like patterns and bright feathers and things. They can always be morphed into really cool side borders. You could make your own border sheets, photocopy them, and then you can use them over and over and over. You just gotta really think. Patterns from these dresses would be awesome for just, you could even just cut her entire dress out and then create a character who's wearing that dress. Like, there's so many ideas that go through my head, and this was because of her blue hair. I like the blue ruffles. Magazines like this that have models and things, you can do so much. You can either use them as is, you can alter them, but I'm pretty sure all the clothing patterns were what drew me to it. And I was also talking, these were sheets for the shading video when I was showing you shading and photographs. I absolutely love all this patterning in here. That would get cut down and turned into something. Stuff that's nondescript, like that could be a pavement anywhere. And so that one can be used, patterns, you name it. That's the main thing that I look for when I am picking journal fodder for my journals. And then obviously we did the poetry in motion, and this definitely can be used in your journals without having to do any drawing. You can collage a background and create stuff on top of it, and there you have a tip-in, and on the back you can add your photographs, your journaling, and there's no drawing involved. Stuff like this I absolutely adore, and then would love, like I love nature. I love nature photographs, drawings, all of it. So I'm always looking for things like this to pop into my journal as a background page and then do my journaling and stuff over the top of it. Most definitely this is one of my favorite photos, and I did honestly think about framing this one as well. So I also, like I said, I always look for text and things. I love the art of letting go, and that is exactly why I cut it out. I also really love these little borders and the girl. So that is just a little bit of chatter about how I go about picking my journal fodder. I pick things that I know that I can transform and still be, it will not look like what it originally was. It would look like something that I have created, and that is what I always try and work towards. I don't like seeing my I don't like it when I can still see the original image, especially when it comes to collaging and journal fodder and all that sort of thing. I try and make it as 100% mine as I possibly can, whether that be creating patterned borders, creating the totem poles. Obviously, with this sort of thing, I would have to do drawing in order to morph it, in my opinion, to morph it as much as possible to my own style. But this journal with me is not about drawing, because I really wanted to show you that you could still do journal pages without having an ounce of drawing ability in your body. And I am focusing on photography because I know that that is the closest thing. If I couldn't draw, I would still use photographs constantly. That would be my backup. Like if I honestly, if I couldn't draw, if I suddenly lost the ability to be able to draw anything, and that's hard to say it that way because I believe that drawing is a learned skill and anyone can learn. So if I lost the ability, I would just relearn. As hard as it would be, I would just relearn. But let's just say you don't want to learn how to draw, you have no inclination, but you still want to add visual elements to your journals. And that is where we're going to work from with this journal with me. So I am going to sometimes talk to you about what I'm doing and the processes and things, but I've just spent 20 minutes talking about collage and how I pick and what do I look for. So I will speed some portions up, but I will check in every now and again if there's something that I think I can teach you or put some light on, the same way I did with the letting go page and doing the hard things, where I came in and showed you things and explained what I was doing and why I was doing it. I will do my very best to do that for you. But at the moment, I am going to cut out my buildings and work out how I want to arrange them on my street. So it'll be a double page spread, and these are photographs that I've taken when I've been out and about on a day trip with my husband, and there's no reason why you couldn't do exactly the same thing. I think photographs, they're my favorite. Like, they are the ultimate collage fodder, is using your own photographs. And I think that we all take a million trillion photographs and then we don't do anything with them. I need to find my Tim Holtz scissors because these are my kids' scissors and they're like ghetto as heck and they don't have a nice line to cut. So I'm gonna go get my scissors and then we're gonna cut these buildings out. All right, let's talk for a millisecond. I have fussy cut out the buildings, and obviously this was just a wall, so it kind of doesn't fit with the actual building, so this will get put aside, but I will use it in my journal. Now, because I printed these quite large, because I wanted some of my other photos to be quite large, and I did play around with the whole look of them, they won't fit across my journal spread. Now, there are two things that I can do. I can glue these to a sheet of paper, scan them, shrink them down, and print it out as one image, which I very well may possibly do, or I'll put them in my scanner without actually adhering them to anything and do that because I like how old school it is. It's kind of like almost 3D. Or I can use some clear tape to tape these guys together and create like a folding pull-out tip-in. And both ideas are calling me severely. So like the idea of gluing this side down and then not gluing it, but taping that side down, then tipping in these together like a concertina so they can fold in on each other, and it would be like this one here and I would have a tab, and you can pull that across the page. And then on the other side, because I have like the Kodak paper, I'm going to journal on them. And I think that's how I'm going to go, so that you still have the effect of the streetscape, but without the the annoyingness of having a book. I want to have it a double page spread, but I don't want to cut up. My book is too turned. If I was starting this book and it was still laid flat, I would just cut this picture in half and sandwich it into the spine, but my book can't handle that at the moment because I've got too much of a warped spine. So what I'm going to do, I'm also going to scan them as is in that formation, because I think that'll look cool in a art journal spread. So that's what I'm going to go do now. I'm going to go pop them in the scanner as is and back them on, just put a white piece of paper down, back them onto the white piece of paper, scan them, pull them out, and then I'm going to come back and turn these into a pull out tip in, and then we will go from there. I really like the idea of pulling it out and having a city, like a streetscape almost, like come across your page. It's something different. I will work out how to use this girl. I may turn it into like a pocket or something in the back, I don't know. But this was Newtown's known for its really cool street art, and this is one of my favorites with the girl with the cherry blossoms and the cats and things, and it's always right near where we park. There's a certain place that John likes to park, and if we're lucky we get a park there, and she greets us as soon as we walk out of the parking lot. So that is why I grabbed a picture of that. But I do love the whole concept of using buildings, and this might be something that carries on into my New York journaling, because I love the buildings and stuff. So I want to take some photographs of buildings, and I could essentially use that picture as I've got it here and then sketch that as something. It was Holly Exley who did a collage for something. She collaged all these plants around some bunnies, and then hand drew the collage. So it was it was really, really cool, and something I'd never considered. But that's the same sort of concept, was these are collage elements, and then going and sketching this as one piece, as an art piece. Really cool, something you can think about if you want to, but this is all about not drawing. So that's why I'm trying to get creative with how I use my photographs, so that you can still have a really interactive, fun journal spread without having the quirk and the character of, of your own hand drawings and things. So that's why I'm trying to be extra innovative with what I show you, because sometimes you just don't want to draw, or sometimes you don't believe in yourself that you can draw. So that is why I'm making sure that what I show you is something that's creative and something that might spark something in you. And I definitely really, really like the way that these all look together, even though they've taken at different angles, different buildings. I think they just fit. I fist pumped when I put the three of them together. You better know it. So I've scanned those, and I've got my clear tape here. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our tape down. I'm going to get them as close together as possible. I want to create a hinge, so I want them to work together. So I might do this side first. Obviously we're going to be collaging and journaling over the backs of these, so it's all good. Problem with this bit is getting them close together so there's no gap. That is my one issue, because I want them to be as seamless as I possibly can get them. Obviously, being separate photos, there's only a small degree of accuracy. Like we're literally merging buildings together, so it's not going to be perfect. But we'll get there. I don't want that there, so I'm going to cut that bit off. Like so. And then we want to put that fold in it because we do want it to bend and fold and move. So now, because that one's going to be adhere to here, and we're going to put this one here, like that. Make sure you guys can see. Sorry, I have to be really close so I can get it done, but at the same time I don't want you guys to miss out. So it will essentially look like this on the page. I will have to put some form of tab there, and then it'll pull out like that. I would like for it to not pop out of the page. I mean, I could put it here. Let's see if I can get that to warp the other way as well. I mean, I could do it like that and have the smaller building on the side, and then obviously whatever peeks through this section, and then have it come out that way, which makes it a lot neater when it comes to adhering it into my book. And obviously I always talk about tip-in mechanics. Try it all different ways to make sure that you're not going to have any overhang and stuff like that. There will be a tiny bit of overhang, so I would scooch it in a little bit. Obviously I need to tip it in, so I do need that little bit of gap on the side so that I can then pull it that way and you can see all the journaling and photographs that I put on there. But yeah, I think I will go from this side because it's a lot neater, and then whatever I put here, I want it to enhance the building. So I really do need to think about what I want to put on this part of the tip-in because it's going to be peeking out. And I am very much thinking about that picture of hubby. Oh, where is it? I'm gonna fussy cut him out of this photograph and just see what it looks like, because that would be a way for me to morph my whimsy and quirky. And obviously this is all about a date day with hubs, so what better way to put than a fox in the middle of the buildings. So I'm just gonna try that. I'm gonna cut him out and see. It may not work, but this is what we do when we're trialing and doing things. Sometimes I don't think about this in this much depth, but when I'm trying to be creative and innovative and show you different ways, I do honestly think about these sorts of things and how I can make it visually stimulating. And then sometimes I just journal, slap my pictures down, put some watercolor down, and away we go. But I'm gonna fussy cut hubby. I'll be back in a sec. So I love it. I absolutely love it. For some reason it reminds me of creatures coming to visit me in the real world, and I love it so much that it's my hobby in my crazy hat, and probably looks better in the hat than I do. So that will go down there. So then I have the dilemma of when I pull this out, we're going to see this. This is where hubby's back part of the photo, and my first instinct is to draw a creature that will mimic that. But I can't because this is no drawing. So then what I will do is I'll trace this shape on a piece of paper, and I will collage something. I will try and tweak one of my creature images or something and tape and paste that, collage something onto the back of just that portion of the photograph, and then I will build something so it looks like something is peeking over those buildings, and it will be a little bit of the real world and a little bit of my whimsy world. But I definitely love the idea of hubby peeking through past there. He's gonna kill me, I know it. He told me never to show this photo to anyone, and I went, do you know what I do for a living? You're gonna be there. I love you dearly. The Inkies will love you for being a dork, and that is just, you just have to live with this thing. You shouldn't post post for cute photos. Battery died. Like I said, he shouldn't post for cute photos if he doesn't expect it to end up in my journal, which then ends up on the World Wide Web. He should know. Learn your lesson, Hubs. I know you don't watch his videos, but learn your lesson. So that is what I'm going to do. I am going to, first what I'm going to do is I need to tackle this tip-in. By tackle, I mean I need to work on it like this before I start taping it into my journal. So I need to work on both sides of this tip-in. I need to collage or paint or something onto this. I need to glue hubby on there, but I want to put something in the background first, and then I also then need to go and trace that other side of the tip-in to get that general look. I have some of my collage sheets here, and collage is allowed. We're not drawing, and yes, I did draw these items, but let's just pretend that I bought them on Etsy from an artist. Are any of these ones the creature ones, or have I not? Let's see. That was part of my Newtown thing, so that needs to go in there. I don't think I want these guys in there, so I may go look at my other sheets to see if I can put a different creature in. I do like this one, I mean, but it's going to be too big. Although, if we cut her antlers off, we can almost make it. Almost. Let's see. I'm going to go get the paper version of this, which is in my Dear folder, and see what I can do. But I will have to speed some of this up because I can't talk through every single step, or I will lose my voice yet again for the 4th time this week. But I'm going to go get my collage sheets and see what we can do with the tip-in itself. So what I'm going to do is I've got my John here, and I've got 2 candidates that may work, it may not. But the way I'm going to trial it is I'm going to pop down, because I need it to fit this part of him. I think. Am I doing this right? Yes. So I need to try and get the eyes and a form of the ears, and I am just using my pink pencil, although the lead's snapped. Let's see if I have, yeah, to just, Jesus Christ, come on, let's work with me here, lead. Thank you. I'm just going to trace lightly around this to see if I can make this work. Hopefully I can see the pink lines, and I shouldn't press so damn hard. Not my day. Nothing. Oh, this is why things break, Connie. So let's see if I can cut around this shape. Let's see if I've pulled it off. If not, I've just ruined my collage element. I'll have to rework it out after. It's a little bit too big, but we can chop that off. We can work with that. We're just seeing if we like it, if it works, or if I am losing my marbles. So hard when you can't keep everything together. This is the stuff that I normally speed up because it will drive me crazy. Right, that's gonna go here. Not sure I like that. Not sure. I mean, it could work, but I think there's got to be other alternatives out there that would work better than this little guy. So that is the nature of working out what works and what doesn't work. So back to the drawing board, but not drawing because we're not drawing. But that's okay. We'll find something that works. I have a lot of creatures, or I could just literally build one out of collage sheet elements, which I may very well do, instead of trying to force something into that look. I could put that head in there, but then it's not quite big enough head. Let me think on it. Let me go look through my stash and see what I can find, and then I'll come back. Right, I've been faffing about with these two little collage sheets. I literally took the antlers off this one and put it onto this one. I'll probably do a recreation of that somewhere in that journal spread. But I found that the closed eyes wasn't working because it's peeking over a building, so the eyes needed to be open. So I'm going to use this one, and I'm going to block in some ears using, because obviously you're not going to see this bit because it's just peeking out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a piece of this paper in and create ears that way, and just cut around them, and I will have to do some lines just to turn them into ears. But essentially it's just using a collage sheet element to back hubby. So that is what I'm going to do. I am going to speed that bit up because I am just taking way too long talking. But yeah, I faffed about for ages until I realized that's what I wanted to do. So I cut the head out and put it. So yeah, like I was saying before, I ran out of space on my card, is I want to back something. So maybe something like this, so that we're using it. And then I will carve out the ears from there. I think I kind of like the idea of orange ears, so we'll see where that takes us, well, that takes me, I guess. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to glue this onto the side. I've had some lunch. I've got to go pick up my teacup humans in 20 minutes. So yeah, it does take a long time to think more. I've got to think more when I can't draw things, and that's just because drawing is my default. So I'm not working. Collage is also one of my defaults, but at the same time, if I've got something, like normally I would just draw a creature that sat in this spot, but not everyone can do that, and that was the whole challenge that was put towards me, was to do it with no drawing. So I'm gonna do that because that's the whole point. So I am going to stick down this piece of paper here, and then I'm going to cut around the excess and go from there. Now all I'm doing here is, let me get a piece of paper. Of course I've got 50,000 bits of paper underneath but not a scrap bit. So I am just lining this little edge because the actual image itself has been lined, but because I'm creating ears and essentially a little bit of hair from the collage sheet background that I've just taped on there. I want to outline it, so that's just me getting those lines so that it looks like it's part of the image. And I am going just a little bit down from the hair so that it looks like it's actually part of the image, because we have essentially just glued on a piece of paper to the back of a head and hoped that it worked. And in a weird funky way it has, but I just really want it to have a outline. And that sort of makes it look like it was meant to be that way. So it just looks like she's got a really funky hairstyle. Not even that she's got ears, but it still works because it just is nice and quirky. And I like that about imaginary things. The weirder, the better. So I'm not really drawing anything. I'm just outlining those collage elements because I like my illustrations to have lines around it. And because I've cut it out of a background, not an actual piece of collage, I just want there to be an outline. So that's kind of, I would do that with a normal collage sheet element as well. So there she is. I think she looks pretty cool with her blaring orange hair. And let's try her. So that is what all you're going to see, even though she looks really cool. I think she looks really cool. So all of a sudden we have a creature that's peeking out of the building, and that will be all you see because on this side you've got hubby on this side. Good job, Connie, no one's gonna see it. So you have her peeking out of the building, and then you have hubby on the other side. And I like it when I can combine my imaginary world with the real world. And that is something that I am striving towards in my art style, is combining my creatures into real life scenarios. So working with photography, working with drawing over photographs, that sort of thing, that's where I want my work to head, and that's where I'm trying to work out the best way to incorporate images into this sort of thing. So baby steps, but I still really like the whole idea of it. So now that I've babbled on 100 miles an hour about this one element on a tip-in for way too long, let's get the rest of this tip-in going and start working on the actual journal page. Or you could leave your boxes black and white and use the background for your color. So I'm going to show you both ways and then you'll get to see what they look like. And using a bit of scrapbook paper, of course we're going to use